so Zionism is a transformation from subservience to God to base material nationalism. And on the contrary, they take God out of the equation because they ignore the fact that we're not allowed to, in fact, make our own, even 1 centimeter, 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty is forbidden since the destruction. But that's God's will, that we should be humbled, we should be subservient and realize we're in exile, and that will cause us to be closer to God and pray and ask for God's compassion. So doing what they're doing is a direct rebellion against God. It's rooted in blasphemy because their whole concept is like they claim, one of the reasons they claim, I mean, reactions to Satan is driving them to make this state. What do they need it for? They should just stop. They're not Jews practicing Jews anyway, so just do your thing in wherever land you're living. No, but they insist on making this country that they call a Jewish state, and they used it because to be able to sell it to the Christians and so forth. So they use the Star of David, they call it Israel, which is Jacob. But when you ask them, why do you need this? So they say, what do you mean why we need it? Don't you see how much we suffered throughout the history in Europe? So we say, look, we believe in God. Everything is from God. God is compassionate. A tsunami comes from God. An earthquake, a plague, and all the good that comes everything is from God. We turn to God. We look at God to protect us. So you say, you're looking to God to protect you? Where was God? So they spew blasphemy, heresy, and they scorn us, and they laugh at the religious Jew. They say, yeah, you're looking at God. The solution is to take a gun and make your own state and protect yourself. So, and then of course they try to embellish it and use, conflate Judaism with it to come, that it should look kosher, it should look good. And they use the facade and they masquerade in the Israel, Star of David, the menorah, all these different things. But the underlying issue is that they scorn and laugh at that religious Jew who looks to God to protect them and says only the Almighty can protect us and is the protector. And so it's rooted in that. Then, unfortunately, being that they made their state in Palestine, so now we have another issue. Because if it would have been a desolate land and uninhabited, we still would oppose them because we're in exile and we're forbidden to return en masse and make our own country. As individuals, God permitted us to live there under the Ottoman Empire, whoever it may be, as long they gave us permission to live there, these countries, so we can. The Torah permits us. But to go en masse and make a national home, that's forbidden. But being that they decided to make their national home, not in Uganda or Patagonia, but in Palestine, so now they had a technical problem because it was inhabited. There were people living there in hundreds and hundreds of villages and towns and so forth. And when they came along, and they want to establish the state, they had these people who were an impediment to that. They had to get rid of them or somehow. So they tried first buying land. And at the beginning, the Arabs and Muslims sold land to the Jews because they had no problem with the Jewish people. We were living together in the same courtyards. I always show the pictures of how we lived together. I mean, there's everybody, Arab and Muslim and Jew pictures.
Bring that closer there.
Yeah, how we would live together. This is how Jews live together with Muslims and throughout history. I mean, everybody has these pictures. Everybody who lives in a Muslim country, in Iraq, in Tunisia, in Yemen, in Morocco, in any place. I mean, in Lebanon, wherever there were Jewish people, you can still find the synagogues. We live, and of course in Jerusalem, Al-Quds, wherever it is, Jews live together without any human rights excuse to protect us, because although we have a different religion, a distinctly different religion, but it was never an impediment of coexistence. So this is a fact. And not only that, on top of that, the Jews, when we were being murdered, basically, in Europe by the Inquisition and the Crusades, and throughout history, Jews were embraced and given a safe haven in Muslim countries. So even though we have a distinctly different religion, the Muslims never found a problem with that. On the contrary, they are told by their imams and by the religion that they should protect and respect the Jewish people, and they did. And we flourished in these countries. So now, when the Zionists come along and they decided to create the state, now they have a problem. People, they have people living there. So at the beginning, I said they started buying it. The Muslims had no problem selling Jews homes and everything. But when all of a sudden they became aware that these Jewish people are coming from Europe, they're not just buying homes. They have a plan to create their control over the land. So they stopped. They didn't want to sell to them. And so then the Zionists started attacking them. And for instance, Deir Yassin, the very well known, the horrific massacre in Deir Yassin, where it was a village of friends to the Jews. It was a Muslim residents over there, very friendly. The Jewish people were the best friends over there with them, and they got along. And these Zionists came in and they massacred Deir Yassin. Our rabbis told us of this. I knew the rabbis of this generation, some who passed on now, and I'm sure there's some people alive still can remember this. And they used to grit their teeth when they talked about it with such pain and sorrow. And this was all what the Zionists did. And of course, they did it in the name of Judaism. And so they came and they took over the land. Now people started asking questions around the world. What's going on there? The Holy Land, why is there turmoil? What's the strife? What's happening? We were living for hundreds of years, Jews, Muslims, Christians. What's going on? So the Zionists, unfortunately, as I say, they were very well connected to Britain and to the new creations of television, of radio, and all these new media outlets. They went to, and they had the connections with these media outlets, and they had the mic in their hands, the soul mic, and they spoke and they said, "Oh, it's a bunch of anti-Semites. These are Bedouins riding on camels, some backward nations of people over there. It's really an empty land. It's a land without a people, for a people without a land. It's nothing. What you're seeing there is just some people that just hate Jews, and they're stopping people from trying to settle their lives." So with that narrative, they went on and on and on and told the world that their settling in the land is a holy issue. It's from God. And the ones who are trying to stop them are just some backward people running around there. But that was totally false. So as the Jewish community, who are living together with the Muslims, with the Palestinians, our rabbis cried foul, and they said this is not us. They pleaded. The chief rabbi at the time, the Zionists made a rabbinate and a chief rabbi.
Yeah.
All window dressing. But we had a rabbinate and a chief rabbi. His name was Rabbi Sonnenfeld in the 1910s, 1920s of blessed memory. And he met with the king of Transjordan. He specially went to meet him. And we have the pictures of that. And he put into Arab newspapers in Arabic that we want to be, we are loyal citizens. We want to be, we're not aspiring to take over the Al-Aqsa Mosque and all that. We have the writings in Arabic. He put in the Al-Salam newspaper at the time. When he passed on, the next chief rabbi was Rabbi Dushinsky. And this is in 1947 already, when the Zionists were almost there. They got the United Nations, which was already after the League of Nations, and was the United Nations. And the United Nations sent a delegate to see what was the story in Palestine, and they were seeing if they should give the Jewish people their homeland. Of course, it's Zionist, but the way they sold the narrative. So the chief rabbi, Rabbi Dushinsky, who was the head of the real Jewish community that were living there, he pleaded with the delegation of the United Nations, and this is in July 16th, 1947. And he said, "We furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine."
Wow.
We don't want this. And then on and on. He passed on. We took up another chief rabbi. You can see the thousands and tens of thousands of Jews gathering in the streets of Jerusalem.
Wow.
Because the community flourished. The community is there, and the community around the world, invariably, the very religious communities. I'm from New York, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, that's right across from Manhattan. There's not one single Israeli flag. It's the largest concentration of religious Jews outside of Jerusalem. But if you go to Montreal, you go to London, you go to any place where there's the very religious communities, because they're very religious, we are in total opposition, not only to what's happening in Gaza, the mass slaughter now that's happening, but the existence of a so-called Jewish state is anathema, is antithetical to our religion, because our religion is to serve God, not to kill, not to steal, to be subservient, and to show gratitude to people who did us kindness, like the Palestinians and the Muslims around the world. And here the Zionists create a state That's against, we're not allowed to have our own sovereignty. They're a bunch of heretics, and they're doing it by vilifying the people of Palestine, by calling them anti-Semites, and simply demonizing them and claiming that they're evil people, when these were our neighbors, friends. We will live together in total harmony, and there's no reason for this. It's simply because they are trying to create a selfish, flawed national home, their ideology, and has nothing to do with religions. It's the three religions live together. I always show this picture. This is when they made the state. David Ben-Gurion reading the Declaration of Independence in 1948 in Independence Hall. So this is the historic moment when they're declaring the state. Here is stars of David on the wall, picture of Theodore Herzl not covering his head behind you.
Yeah.
So don't think it's a religious beard he has. And here, sitting on the dais, there's not one person, I think, covering his head. This is a Jewish state. You think you'd have one rabbi there? Somebody, a Jew covers his head to show that he believes a God is above us. It's a requirement of the Torah. This is the Jewish state that they're declaring, the Declaration of Independence, mind you. So you can see the total hypocrisy, the falsehood, and the difference between what Judaism is and what Zionism is and what the state is. So this is a sad history. From day one, Jews have opposed entirely the existence of the state. Our rabbis have cried and pleaded with the world that they should be listened to, just like you respect the Pope. Well, somebody from any religion, why don't you respect the Jewish community that was living in Palestine, or the Jews around the world who are the Jewish religion? All of us clearly state that this is a farce. This is a falsification of our religion, and it should not be given legitimacy. But unfortunately, Zionism had the ears of Britain, later of the United Nations, which we believe it's the works of the Satan. It doesn't make any sense. They were ratified in 1948, and since then, and even before then, our rabbis have been demonstrating in the streets. Boys and girls, first of all, do not serve in their army from our religious communities, because we don't want to help them in any manner. And they get arrested. Every boy and girl turns 17 becomes a criminal, because it's a mandatory military service, and we refuse to serve in their army.